Welcome to the Keto Summit Show, where it's all about helping you lose weight, regain energy, and live a healthier lifestyle using a keto diet. Here's your host, Louise.
So welcome to the Keto Summit Show. Today, I am joined by Andrea, who is a nutritional therapy practitioner and restorative wellness practitioner. And through her years of practice, she has provided tools and knowledge to enable her clients to confidently rediscover energy and reclaim their lives through habit change. So we're going to talk about 3 must-dos for regaining your energy with a keto diet today. Firstly, welcome, Andrea. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today. And I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump straight into one of the main questions people have about energy, which is why are they feeling so fatigued?
Yeah, and it's such a great question. And really, it's very simple, right? SAD diet, the standard American diet, not really fueling us in the right way. Stress, we all have so much going on now, and it just keeps getting faster. Lack of sleep, because we're trying to get so much done. Lack of exercise for the same reason. So they all add up. Yeah,
it's often not one thing. Like people think, oh, I need to drink more water or I need to just sleep more. But it's really a combination of so many different factors that it's hard to pinpoint one as the driving force behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the great news about that is that those things, although they sound simple and they take a lot of work to change, but you can do so much just working with those things, the really basic things, and they do all add up. So, you can start to chip away at one and then layer in another and another and another. And before you know it, you've kind of created an entire transformation. So.
Well, from reading your website, you're clearly a fan of the keto diet. Mm-hmm. And we've been discussing, some of the things we like to do on keto diets. So would you suggest, for example, that, people use a keto diet to regain their energy if they are feeling fatigued?
Absolutely. And there's a few reasons for that. And I will just say that, as you probably well know, when someone is adopting a keto diet and doing that keto adaptation, it may for just a short time result in less energy, but very quickly they're going to move to where they're going to be getting more energy and feeling better than they have. And that has to do with changing fuel source to ketones. It has to do with taking some of the stress off the adrenals because we're not doing all of that glucose metabolism. And then also that reduction in inflammation results in just clearer mind and clearer focus. And I hear that from my clients all the time. If they can just hang in there, once they get past that halfway through the adaptation period, they just have so much more energy than they used to.
So do you mean the keto flu period, perhaps?
When
they're first trying to start burning fat and get rid of,
glucose. Yeah, and the way I talk about it is that, we all have those metabolic pathways, those enzymatic pathways, but they get a bit rusty when we're stuck over here in that carbohydrate metabolism. So we have to bring that ketone fat burning metabolism back online. And so like with anything in the body, it takes time. You can't just go to the gym twice and expect to be all strong again, right? Or you can't go to learn a language and then just expect that in a week you're going to know it. It takes a little bit of time to up level that whole system. But once you do that and you're really reclaiming something that we all have had before and that have had for a long time, once we reclaim that, then you have that alternate fuel source and you have access to so much more energy than you did before. And I always like to talk about how, we only probably have about 1,500 calories of stored glycogen, stored carbohydrate. We call it glycogen, right? But we have thousands and thousands of calories of stored fat. That's how the body likes to store energy. So once we adapt to learning how to burn fat for fuel, either from the diet or the body, all of a sudden we have access to so much more energy. So it's kind of fantastic.
So how long do you find with your clients does it take for them to become keto adapted?
Well, I will say, just to let everybody know, the good news is I see a lot of people start to see beneficial changes within even a week to a week and a half. But really, we like to say rule of thumb, 4 to 6 weeks to get that major portion. And then even I think people still see subtle changes up to 3, 4, 5 months, but it's really that 4 to 6 weeks to kind of make the major shift. And even within a week or two, people start to see really the subtle changes, the beginning changes in appetite, satiation, not having to snack so much, things like that.
So really stick in there.
Yeah.
And on your website, you also wrote about not necessarily staying keto forever. So a lot of people, think, oh, I have to stop eating bread, stop eating pasta, stop eating sugar, and I have to do this for the rest of my life. Oh my God, like how am I going to do this? So can you expand on that concept of not forever?
Yeah, and this is really near and dear to my heart because I think a lot of people get scared off. They think this is really big, it's really overwhelming, I could never do that forever. And I just want to tell people the good news is that what we're trying to do is regain that metabolic flexibility that we get with keto adaptation, the ability to burn fat as well as we burn carbohydrate. And then what you do with it once you have that flexibility back is going to depend on your situation. Certain groups are going to want to stay really strictly keto, and that's going to be, and I'm not a medical practitioner, so disclaimer, but it's going to be, maybe somebody type 2 diabetes or neurodegenerative or somebody that has a really serious reason they're pursuing that. But for many of us, just to feel better, we need to just find where is the line where we can maintain our keto adaptation, but not necessarily have to be 100% keto all the time. We just have that ability to go back and forth, to toggle. And I'm also a huge fan of intermittent fasting, and I bring that to my clients as well. And those tools together, keto and intermittent fasting, give us so much wiggle room. They allow us to have the luxury of having a wider range of choices, but still maintaining our keto adaptation. And that might be that we're keto 80% of the time, maybe we're keto in our regular life, but when we go on vacation, maybe we have some wiggle room. Maybe somebody fasts 1 day a week, maybe somebody intermittent fast. It can be a whole palette of choices, but the key idea is just that once we have the flexibility, we get to decide how we use that. And so to me, it becomes much more approachable as a lifestyle. And that's really my goal, because I want people to take back their vitality for a lifetime and not to see this as a diet.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to ask the question that's probably on some people's minds, which is, so does that mean I can, eat pizza 5 days a week?
Right.
And
so
then just fast 2 days a week?
Right. That's a great question. So of course, what I always say to people, number one, when we're talking about 80-20, the 20 can't be something that makes you sick. So the extreme is if you're a celiac, your 20% wiggle room cannot include gluten. But even for the rest of us, we need to probably adhere a little closer to those foods that nourish us and away from the foods that make us feel bad. So, for most people, pizza doesn't really make us feel that good. But it might be something, maybe, you might want to have it, certainly not every day, but maybe once a month. But maybe actually what you do is you find a way to make it so that it's keto. And I know you do an incredible job of providing resources on how people can make things that are satisfying and help them not feel deprived. And so that's really coming at this from a place of abundance. The idea is that, if we can find a way to feel completely satisfied and abundant in this lifestyle, then we're not pulled as much to those things that make us not feel good. But then every once in a while, if we want to skew it a little bit, and I always use the example, like, don't judge, but if I go to Italy, I'm probably going to have the gelato and maybe some of that amazing pizza, but it's not something I do in my life every day, because if I did, I'd feel terrible. And I've learned that, and I want to feel good. And as one of my great teachers said, I don't eat that thing because I like to feel good. So the great thing is we get to have so many amazing things on keto that are delicious and help us feel great. So I really don't feel deprived when I'm staying almost 100% keto.
That's fantastic. And I did just make some keto pizza today with cashew cheese.
Oh, that sounds so good. Yeah, that's great.
So it's funny we brought that up.
Yeah.
Well, so let me bring the conversation back to energy, which is the topic. And, some people, like we've been talking about people like ourselves, and we don't really have serious health issues. But some of our listeners may have things like adrenal fatigue or HPA Axis Dysfunction. And for those people, would you recommend a keto diet, or would you recommend they start with something more like paleo? Just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
I love this question. I just love this question because there is a perception out there in the field, the wellness field, nutrition field, that somehow keto isn't good for people with hypothyroid or adrenal issues. And I'm here to tell you that is absolutely not true. But yes, absolutely, which is one reason why it's great to work with a professional in one of these fields. There are things that we can do to what we call on-ramp in a way that is comfortable. And first off, to understand why this is helpful for somebody with those issues, if we understand that thyroid and adrenal are two sides of the same stick, so we're really talking about a similar issue with both hypothyroid and adrenal dysfunction. And when we have a constant up and down of blood sugar, where we're constantly spiking and crashing and spiking and crashing, that is tremendously stressful on the adrenals. It's constantly calling on them to go into action, to signal the liver to put more glucose into the bloodstream, right? So when we do what I call cross the bridge over into keto, all of a sudden we've taken the pressure off of those adrenals, because now we're in the ketone pathway, which has nothing to do with any of that process, right? We're burning fat for fuel. So you can see how it would be incredibly helpful. And I've seen it over and over with clients with these issues, that once we get over that bridge, it is so helpful for them and they have a new lease on life. Now, here's the deal. Crossing that bridge does take extra support, and you are absolutely right. I do recommend an on-ramp of something a little gentle. First, we want to clean out sugar and processed foods. Then absolutely a paleo, that sort of a more whole food, and getting closer to keto. And then once that's really working well, then we can introduce keto, and we might even do something like 2 meals keto, 1 not, and then work up to it. And so going a little bit easier in that sequence so that they can make the transition, cross that bridge into keto, and still function in their regular lives while doing it. And I've seen wonderful results with those clients over and over again. So great message to get out to people.
No, that's fantastic. And I love the practical advice of you on-ramping. That's actually a great way of putting it. We've always just thought of it as, well, you don't have to cut it down to 20 grams of carbs a day immediately and then fall off the wagon 2 days later because you can't stick with it, or it's just too hard on your body. So
yes,
that slow, gentle approach is definitely something I've personally found very useful.
Yeah.
So going down the practical route then, if somebody is feeling, they're feeling pretty tired, but they don't have serious health issues, what 3 things do you think they can do today or start doing today to really boost their energy levels?
And another great question. Of course, it's hard to just shrink it to 3, but I'm going to do it. And of course, I'm going to recommend looking at the diet, right? That's kind of an obvious one. But like we just talked about, you can on-ramp if somebody's feeling like, oh, I'm really interested in this whole keto thing, but I just don't know if I can take that whole thing on yet. I don't really know all the ins and outs. Start with just removing sugar. Right? So powerful. Then maybe you move to processed foods, or you move to taking wheat out, or you move to getting more vegetables in. So little by little, right? And then I think that probably one of the biggest pieces that we have in this modern life is the stress piece. And I don't think people even realize how much it's taking out of them. I see it over and over. We're in what is called a chronic sympathetic state or a chronic stress state, and it's really burning us out. And we have to find a way to reduce that stress load and also increase our capacity. And so proactive stress management, and I am a huge fan of even the simplest meditation practice. I mean, literally, I tell some people who can't imagine doing it, just set your timer for 2 minutes, and stop and close your eyes and breathe. And then you can step up to various apps or longer amounts of time, but it creates an anchor point that we can go back to that helps our body stay in that more balanced state. And I think another piece of that is really reducing what's going on in our lives. And there's also great resources to help with that, but really focusing on what is the main thing that I'm here to do and how can I say no or clear out everything else, right? It's really difficult to do, but just saying no. And then the final number 3 is exercise. And even, in fact, sometimes even better, especially for some of those people we talked about before who might have hypothyroid or adrenal fatigue issues, gentle, mild exercise can work wonders. We're moving the lymph, we're getting the body going, and then finding where that balance is for you. And I will say that sometimes people are really tired because they're overdoing that. They're training for a marathon or they're triathletes, which is amazing. I have huge respect for that. I'm a very slow triathlete over here. But sometimes we're overdoing that too. We think if exercise is good, more is better. But if we can actually pull it back to something a little bit more modest that helps us kind of get things going and get moving and get the lymph going and get that detox going and sweating and all that kind of thing, we're going to have more vitality than if we're pushing ourselves to exhaustion. So I would say whatever dietary changes you can do, whatever stress changes you can do, and whatever you can do to get yourself moving, those 3 things are really going to go a long ways.
That's fantastic. So clean up your diet, cut out the sugar at least, even if you're not going to go paleo or keto, and then de-stress using meditation techniques is super helpful, and then get moving. Fantastic. I love your emphasis on meditation. My husband's been huge into meditation for the past, I guess, maybe over a decade. And he was actually just telling me yesterday, he's like, I didn't want to meditate because I didn't feel like I had 30 minutes. I was too rushed. And he was reminded of a quote that if you don't think you have 30 minutes to meditate, then that means you should be meditating for 3 hours. And I was like, oh my God, that's totally me.
That is so true. And it's usually the go types who are like, I can't do that. I could never stop for that long. But it's also the go types who are really trying to accomplish a lot in this world. And I think we'll probably even accomplish more if we can find that quiet anchor point. So that's great for your husband. Awesome. Good work.
Now he's just trying to get me to meditate a bit more.
Yes.
I think that quote was for me more than for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those wonderful tips with us, Andrea. Do you have any last words before I tell people where they can find you?
Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Louise, and you do so much for this community. I am just always so impressed and grateful for your presence and how many resources you provide. And I just want to tell everybody that you can take back your health. We have more power than we know. We can create the life we want to, and in many cases improve it immensely through these simple changes of diet and lifestyle.
It's fantastic. Thank you again. And you can find Andrea at nourishstrength.com, and we will drop in the links to her YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook pages, or in the notes below. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you.
Hey, it's Louise from the Keto Summit Show, where we share practical tips and actionable advice to help you look good and feel good lifelong. So if you've enjoyed watching this video, then please click the subscribe button on YouTube and share our YouTube link with your friends and family. Thanks, and see you on the next episode.